The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome back to Ryedale once again. Now we'll be seeing a village in this one, and one that's got a bit of railway history to talk about. But before we can get into that, there's something even more unusual for a place this small. You see, on the sort of western fringes of it near the A64, there's something called a Biotech campus. What's all that about? We'll soon find out. This is the parish of Hutton. Hutton, Sandy Hill Spur Farm. Round 16 in Ryedale brings us to a parish I've been looking forward to. You'll remember on Monday during the intro for the Scrayingham episode, I mentioned I'd been putting this run we're on here off several times. The thing that piqued my interest around here when I first looked at it lies within the history of this place, Hutton, about 6 miles away from York. Visit Hutton these days and you'll find a quiet village not too dissimilar from those we met earlier this week. The name is derived from the Old English words hoe and tun, meaning a hill or spur of projecting land. Sand was added as a prefix to denote the type of soil in the area, which helped to distinguish it from other Huttons nearby. Hutton shows no outward signs of any industrial past, nor does it offer clues to what once ran through its streets. There's a school and a church, but you'd be forgiven for thinking those are the only things of note about this pretty North Yorkshire village. However, it's not that long ago that Hutton was effectively a railway village. The manor here was once owned by an eccentric Englishman by the name of Sir Robert Walker. He built a narrow-gauge steam railway which provided transport around his large estate. It ran to several of the villages around Hutton, including Bossall and Claxton, both of which we've seen so far this week. It also ran south to Warthill, where it connected Hutton to a mainline station. West of the village is a Biotech campus, and we'll explore that too while we're here. Welcome to Hutton, everyone. Let's have another wander. We begin on the edge of Hutton, close to the A64, where our first stop is something very different to the village we're about to explore. This is the York Biotech campus, which was previously known as the National Agri-Food Innovation Campus, or NAFIC. It's a science park that's been a leader in science innovation for over 20 years. The campus rebranded to York Biotech to reflect its evolution from an agri-tech site to a biotech site. It's attracted leading science organisations in its time, such as Ferra Science Limited, Labskin and Covent, Abingdon Health, and the Centre for Crop Health and Protection. The campus hosts a variety of organisations that span the sector from agri-tech, food biotechnology, environmental, medical, healthcare, diagnostics and patents. Its location shouldn't be a surprise. Yorkshire has always been a place that inspires innovation, from the invention of cat's eyes to the filming of the first ever moving picture, and even the accidental formulation of jelly tots. That legacy lives on here due to York's thriving reputation as a regional hub for bioscience. It is, though, a bit of an anomaly when you consider what the rest of Hutton looks like. This is very modern, high-tech and quite out of place compared to the immediate local area. That said, certain elements of Hutton's history have been quite inventive, as we'll see. Hutton village is located almost halfway between the A64 and the A166 to the east of York. The nearest settlements are Claxton, just over a mile to the north, and Upper Helmsley, 1 mile to the south. The village is mentioned in the Domesday Book as Hutton in the Bulford Hundred. Before the Norman invasion, the manor was shared between Sprott and Gospatrick. Afterwards, they were split between the Crown and Hugh Fitzbaldrick, who installed Wulfbert of Hutton as lord of the manor. The latter part of the manor passed eventually to the Mowbray family until 1604, when the title became unused. The other part of the manor was in the possession of the Percy family of Kildale in the early 13th century. Other families that had possession of Hutton down the years included the Greys of York and the Thwaite family. In 2001, Hutton had 81 dwellings, of which 54 were detached. It hasn't changed much since. Okay, so we've driven down the road now between the Biotech campus and Sand Hutton village, and this here is the village hall, which will be our end point, because I've now got to take a walk from here to the other end of Sand Hutton to begin this walk, because it's another linear village. Before I do that though, I just want to mention what this sign says, because as you can see, the village hall, which belongs by the way to Sand Hutton and Claxton, has a pop-up pub called the Sinolder Arms. Now that name might not make any sense to you at the moment, but it definitely will by the time we've finished with this video. Let's go. Our walk begins at the Silver Jubilee Memorial. I promise you, we are at it. It's just at this time of year, it might be a little hard to spot. It's a plaque as opposed to a column or a cross or similar. It's located within this copse of trees, and it simply commemorates the Queen's Silver Jubilee in 1977. This copse has another interesting thing to talk about. It's close to the point where a light railway turned north to head towards Claxton. There's not much evidence of it now though, but keep it in mind. Let's move on to the school. This is Sand Hutton C of E Primary, which is in the catchment area for Huntington School in York as far as secondary education goes. As well as Sand Hutton, it serves the villages of Gate Helmsley, Upper Helmsley, Buttercram, Hutton, Bossall, Claxton and Flaxton, because it's the only school in any of them. The school was built by Sir James Walker in 1861 and was enlarged by his grandson in 1997 to include kitchens and a dining hall. The school's mission is to provide a high-quality education based on Christian beliefs, but also to develop the full potential of all children in a caring environment. Well, what with the style of buildings and cottages and things out here, it really does feel like it is an East Riding village. Have I transported myself back into the East Riding series? Well, no, unfortunately, but there's still nothing wrong with Sand Hutton, is there? It's absolutely gorgeous. Now we're about halfway through the village at this point here. We've seen the school and we've seen the Jubilee marker and a few other bits and bobs. We're going to continue down this road, and the church is the next thing to come up on the right hand side. Sand Hutton actually has more than one church. It's got two. Sand Hutton is quite an active village when it comes to outdoor activities. It's located in an area popular with shooting and other field sports. The village and most of the land in it are owned by the Church of England commissioners, who bought it from the Walker family. Located east and west of the village, there are numerous pits used for fishing too. Now, the Walker family lived at Sand Hutton Hall, which no longer stands. It was demolished in 1971. It was a fabulous building and partially the work of the architect Anthony Salvin. It was originally built in 1786 and extended in 1839 to his designs. It was internally remodelled in 1900 for Sir Robert Walker, and it was he who came up with a novel way of getting around the huge estate the hall commanded. Sir Robert Walker was quite an eccentric man, but he was also somewhat sensible. He knew the Sand Hutton estate was big, far too large indeed to walk around it all the time. To solve the problem, he built a 7-mile-long narrow-gauge railway with a line to the hall. It provided transport for many things in and around the large estate. Walker began experimenting with a 15-inch gauge miniature railway in 1910. In 1912, he decided to build one in the grounds of the hall. By the end of the year, 350 yards of the track had been laid, and the locomotive Sinolder, named after his first wife, had been acquired. By the end of 1913, the railway had been extended to 1,245 yards and was extended again by half a mile in 1914. At the outbreak of the First World War, the railway went into hiatus. Most of the local men joined the war effort, and the hall and grounds largely closed. After the war, though, Walker returned to the hall and reopened it. Up until this point, the railway had only served the hall, but Walker had bigger plans. He wanted to extend it so that it connected with the nearby North Eastern Railway station at Warthill, a total distance of 7¼ miles. For this, he needed a light railway order, which was applied for and granted in January 1920. Work on the extension started in the May, with the track bed being constructed near Warthill Station. By the end of the year, it was complete as far as Hutton, and work was underway on the 3-mile-long branch to the brickworks at Claxton. However, much of the new line was steeply graded, and it became obvious that a miniature locomotive like Synolder would not be capable of working the new line efficiently. Walker began searching for a more powerful solution to his transportation needs. In December 1920, the government announced the sale of the equipment from the narrow gauge railway at Deptford Meat Depot. This included track and rolling stock of a much more substantial nature. Walker then purchased most of the Deptford equipment and set about converting the miniature railway into the Hutton light railway. By 1922, the last remains of the original miniature railway were gone, and the remaining rolling stock was up for sale. Synolder ended up on the Bellevue Miniature Railway in around 1925 and is now preserved at the Ravenglass and Eskdale Railway in Cumbria. The light railway used 4 four-wheel open carriages built by Bassett Loke, each seating up to 8 passengers. Walker also had 2 vehicles built at Hutton, a closed bogie salon carriage and a 4-wheel closed brake van. The salon carriage is also now on the Ravenglass and Eskdale Railway. The light railway was soon open to goods traffic, which was to be expected given the connection to Warthill Station. This helped the brickworks at Claxton, given the substantial branch that served it. In 1923, the line was further extended to Bossall, and a steep branch to Barnby House was added. The light railway order for the railway allowed for a half-a-mile extension to Scrayingham, but this would have involved a large and expensive bridge over the River Derwent, so it was never built. The network carried agricultural produce from the estate's farms, coal to the brickworks, and bricks from them. Most of the goods traffic flowed to or from the transfer sidings at Warthill Station. The line also ran passenger services for personnel and visitors to the estate between 1924 and 1930. The Claxton brickworks closed in 1929 and became the Fishery, which we talked about yesterday, and Walker died in 1930. The line closed in June 1932 and was dismantled by 1933. Today, there's virtually no trace of the network which served all of these villages less than 100 years ago. It was all thanks to one man with a balmy yet incredible idea. Now look at this for a brilliant feature of the village. Check this out. It's a well, and it's still got its cover, its handle, even though it probably doesn't turn anymore. Let's see if it does. Oh, it does. It does turn. Wow. Excellent. And of course, there's no bucket attached to it these days because of this. There's a lid on it. But yeah, brilliant feature in the centre of the village, that, isn't it? Lovely. And it stands opposite the entrance to the church, which is there. Now, as I said a few moments ago, Hutton has got 2 churches. The one you can see right there, well, that's the current church. There is, though, another one which is within the grounds, if you know where to go. Next, we have the church, which here in Hutton is dedicated to St Mary. The modern building was erected between 1840 and 1842. In the churchyard are the remains of the 12th century St Leonard's Chapel, and both are Grade 2 listed buildings. Let's start with St Mary's. This is set back from the main street and accessed through wrought iron gates and along a chestnut tree-lined avenue. It was built by Anthony Salvin at the sole expense of James Walker of Hutton Hall. The church was consecrated on May the 31st, 1847 as the Chapel of Ease of Hutton, replacing the earlier 12th century St Leonard's. St Mary's is built in the Gothic style of sandstone and has a Westmoreland slate roof. The porch at the southwest corner of the nave forms the base of a tower with a brooch spire in the early English style. The tower contains 3 bells, 2 tenor and 1 treble, cast by Thomas Mears of the Whitechapel Bell Foundry in London. The church was remodelled by Hodgson Fowler in 1885, with both the chancel and the organ being added at that time, and the nave being reseated. The oak screen within was given in 1900 in memory of James Walker by his 5 sons. The church is open during the day and visitors are very welcome. So what about St Leonard's? Well, to the east of St Mary's stand the ruins of Sandhutton's first church, although strictly this should be called a chapel of ease, as Bossall was the mother church until 1861. The Norman doorway of the ruin has been dated by experts to around 1150 or 60. The original Norman church at Bossall is actually younger than this, which is unusual. You'd expect that this, being a chapel of ease to it, would be the younger, but who knows how things were in Norman times. The original Norman windows here, which at their best are only apologies, would make a building of such small dimensions very gloomy, and this accounts for the larger perpendicular window in the south wall. There are absolutely no traces of any other windows left. Under the perpendicular window is an aumbrey where the communion plate would no doubt once have been kept. The old font still stands in its original place and is a little worse for wear. It's quite likely it was used as a millstone for grinding purposes before serving as a font. Services were held at St Leonard's every third Sunday, and Holy Communion was celebrated here 3 times a year, on Good Friday, the second Sunday in Advent, and on St John's Day. Near where the altar stood lies buried a former Lord Mayor of York, Alderman Reed, who served the city between 1719 and 1746. By 1824, St Leonard's was beyond repair. The walls were very damp as a consequence of the body of the church being much below the surface of the churchyard. Stones from the old chapel were used in the building of St Mary's. So there you go, the 2 churches of Sandhutton. I must say, as interesting as St Leonard's is, I think I prefer St Mary's. I think it's something to do with this tower. I'm not quite sure what it is, but that tower is just beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely gorgeous. I think I overuse that word sometimes, but I think in this case it's merited, isn't it? I think it is. Right, let's head on out of here and we'll take a right back onto the road close to the well, and then we'll head down towards the village hall because that will cap this episode off. So this is the community hall, which houses a small library. It used to have a very different purpose. This was originally the laundry room for the house at the centre of the Sandhutton estate, the fabulous Sandhutton Hall. It's over 100 years old and was given to the community in 1955. It's a registered charity now and hosts many community events, including parish council meetings, coffee mornings, private parties, a gardening club and the local heritage group. In every way possible, it's like any other village hall. In tomorrow's episode, we'll get to see the village located where the end of the Sandhutton Light Railway was. Yes, folks, join me tomorrow when we'll be exploring the last in this run, bringing this railway-themed area of Ryedale to a close. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.